Hey, welcome back to the Conservative Cat Show. I so do appreciate you being here. It is 6:06 a.m. Central Time, which means we are live Monday through Friday. Don't miss a single second of this show, Conservative Cat, and be sure to subscribe. Today's show, this is for anyone who's ever opened up their property tax bill and thought to themselves, how is this even legal? So we're going to get into it here because Springfield, it's a complete circus there. The lawmakers, they passed hundreds upon hundreds of bills, and they pass these bills and they totally ignore the cost that these bills will have. So I don't know about you, but you don't go out and buy trucks or uh, dinner without checking your bank account, right? But these people, they're ignoring the budget costs and they are sticking you with the tab. So we are going to get into that. Plus, tipped workers, a win that's bigly huge, big in the big, beautiful bill. People say that this is a political trick. AOC is against it. I'm all for it. Tipped workers getting taxed less on their income. So they still have to pay like payroll taxes and like the Social Security, Medicare. So it's not completely no tax on tips. It's just no tax on tip, like as far as income taxes go. So we're going to get into it here today. And plus, the governor's daughter is melting down. Tim Walz, his daughter is melting down over Alligator Alcatraz. And you won't believe the F-bombs that she uses. I'm going to play him here because I think it's important that we show truly what she said. I mean, F-bomb this, F-bomb that. So I'll play it here in just a little bit. But first, I do want to get into taxation and the Springfield Circus that has gone on and how the lawmakers passed 416 bills and ignored the cost of those bills. So let's dig into it. Subscribe while you're here. Have you ever opened up a newspaper and wondered why Springfield's answer to economic disaster and collapse is designing a new I voted sticker? No, actually, they did that. Or I think the weirdest bill that they've ever crafted that I've seen was a ban on Savannah cats. So Savannah cats, they're like bigger type cats. I have one actually. But they wanted to ban these cats. I mean, there's no they put their head on the pillow at night, and I think that they think of crazy things to legislate that nobody would ever need or want, and they go to bed and they put their head on the pillow, and then they think of the craziest bill that they could introduce, and then they introduce it the next day. They want to set up a commission where they redesign the I voted stickers, the little sticker that you get when you go vote. Yeah, they want to redesign that. It's going to cost money, obviously, but they don't care. They didn't even take that into consideration. While your wallet gets thinner and thinner, the Illinois lawmakers, they are getting more creative. They get really creative, and then they get really corrupt. So stick with me for the next 30 minutes. We're going to dig into this because we are going to unpack the legislative session. And the best way I could describe it is a total clown show. If clowns had supermajorities and access to $55 billion of your money, this is the way it would look. So let's dig in. The Illinois General Assembly, they ran from January to May this year. Okay, so they're in Springfield and they're legislating. During that time, your taxpayer-funded lawmakers, who just voted to give themselves a raise, by the way, introduced 6,745 bills. If I was a state legislator, I'm telling you right now, I would vote no on everything and I would never introduce a bill. There's no reason to be introducing bills. We have laws. We have bills that we're not currently enforcing. It's a total mess. This is not productive. I know it sounds productive. It's not productive because a lot of these bills are stupid, like creating a commission to redesign the I voted sticker. Okay. That's dumb. Or banning your cats or banning your pets. I could think of 100 different bills, I think, that are just nobody would ever need them. And they ban hunting contests where you can't do hunting contests anymore, like furs and things like that. There's just all kinds of nonsense that they introduce. So of those 6,745 ideas, 3,859 would cost the taxpayers money. So over half of them, about half of them, they are bills that come with price tags. Okay, so brace yourself. Lawmakers only asked for price tags. They're called fiscal notes on 10 of those. So of the 3,859 bills that are actually going to cost taxpayers money, there's only 10 of them where they actually ask the question, hey, how much money is this going to cost? Let's get a fiscal note on this bill. So have you guys ever planned a wedding? Now, I planned a wedding, and if you were planning a wedding, this would be comparative to booking 5 different venues, 10 caterers, ordering 10 cakes, and you never check your bank account once, okay? And you just order all of it. Okay, you book all these venues, you book all the things that you don't need. You just need one venue, one cake, one caterer, right? When you're planning a wedding. But these people, they booked 10 venues, 10 caterers, had 10 wedding cakes, okay? And they didn't check the bank account once. So scripture tells us, Luke 14:28. Let's look into it. Crack open your Bibles. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? That's Illinois government right there in one verse. I'm telling you. Apparently in Springfield, they skipped the sermon. They haven't read Luke 14:28. So Governor J.B. Pritzker, he has signed 416 of these bills. Like I said, 6,745 bills were introduced. Of those, so far, Governor J.B. Pritzker signed 416 of those bills into law. And you want to guess how many of the 416 had a fiscal note on it. So a fiscal note is simply where the legislators ask, hey, how much does this cost? What is the cost of this? And how much is it going to cost us to complete this project? Just one of the 416 bills had a fiscal note on it. So think about that. You don't run your household this way. I don't run my household this way. I know you don't. You don't go buy a truck, a trampoline, a timeshare in Tampa without checking your bank account and your bank balance. Okay, but the people running our state, they are playing monopoly with your money. And the worst part is that nearly 100 of those laws were passed in the last 24 hours of session. Of the 416, there were about 100 of those passed in the last 24 hours. So they had January to May, okay, to pass legislation. They passed, a blitz of legislation at the very end, 24 hours before session ended. That's not governing. That's a legislative bender. Okay. And if you did that in the real world, like rushing decisions, ignoring costs, you'd wind up in bankruptcy court, okay, or federal prison. Okay. So in Illinois politics, however, they get away with it and it gets you reelected. So let's talk about this year's budget. The new Illinois state budget is $55.2 billion. That is a record high. But get this, it also shorts the rainy day fund by $45 million and uses $700 million in new taxes to do this new balancing trick. So Governor J.B. Pritzker likes to say he balances the budget all the time. A couple of years ago, they only balanced it with the federal COVID dollars. And every year since then, they've raised new taxes to balance the budget. Okay, so these aren't taxes on the rich, by the way. These are what Pritzker calls, quote, smart new sources of revenue. Translation, you're paying more. You always pay more when it comes to these things. So Illinois has $143.7 billion in unfunded pension liabilities and a rainy day fund that could barely float the state for about 15 days. This is the second worst in the nation rainy day fund. Okay, so we are not doing well, and I don't think that you'd run your household this way, like I said. But responsible adults, they save for the future. You save for the future. You stow money away. But in Illinois and these Democrats, they just spend like there's no tomorrow and they buy votes today. That's what they're doing. So what do your leaders think is worthy of your money? and their time. So get ready, buckle in. They debated legislation on all of these things. Gender inclusive state forms. So to make sure everything is gender inclusive. So not referring to fathers as fathers, mothers as mothers, make sure everything is gender inclusive and really just ambiguous. And it's confusing. They change all these state forms to be gender inclusive. Okay. Then they debated legislation on protecting felony prostitution records. So making it to where you can't get your hands on those types of records. Catheter care in assisted living. That's what they've been debating. Providing court translators for 13 languages. Okay, that's just ridiculous. Who the heck speaks, I don't know, a weird language? Why do we need 13 of them? Like Spanish and English. That's about all you need, I would say. Why are we dedicating time debating legislation to make sure that there's court translators for 13 different languages? It's just insanity. If you don't speak English, you probably shouldn't have even been a citizen of this country. And in our court system, at all. If you don't speak the language, I'm assuming you're an illegal immigrant, because we really should just be vetting these people, and if they don't speak English, they shouldn't become citizens. I know I'm of a strong belief on that, and you might think I'm crazy, but you shouldn't even be a citizen if you don't speak English. That's my position. How are you going to live in a country where the predominant language is English? The road signs are all in English. Okay. How are you going to live in a country if you don't speak the language? How are you going to make relationships and build communities and families when you don't speak the language? Makes no sense why we would accept anybody who doesn't speak the language. Court translators for 13 different languages. So they debated that legislation, capping insulin costs, registering 15-year-olds to vote. Okay. Banning overnight votes in the Capitol. So lawmakers could get their beauty sleep. So they wanted to ban the overnight votes in the Capitol, so lawmakers could, of course, get their beauty sleeps. Now, I am not totally against some of these. Like, okay, they're registering 15-year-olds to vote. I don't even know what bill number this is. I got to dig into it more, but this is what they do. They love to register people. Like, if you go to the DMV, there's an automatic registration, like if you renew your license here in the state of Illinois, and it's almost like gotten to a point where it's like, look, I have the right to abstain. You know what I mean? Or I have a right to not vote. As much as you have a right to vote, you have a right not to vote. And these people are trying to force you into, really, I know what the crux of the issue is here. They want to bloat the voter rolls, okay, with as many people as possible. And you run into problems where you might get illegal immigrants. Automatic voter registration because they can get driver's license here in the state of Illinois. You might run into issues where people don't live here anymore and they moved, but they're still on the voter rolls because they were automatically registered through the automatic driver registration program. They need to clean up the voter rolls, but they want to bloat the voter rolls to steal elections. That's what that's all about. So they want to register 15-year-olds. Obviously, they wouldn't be able to vote. So they'd be registered. And then once they finally hit the age to vote, then they can go vote. It's just bizarre. And of course, as I mentioned, they debated a commission to redesign. So they created a commission to redesign the I voted stickers. So I went through all of that: catheter care in assisted living, court translators for 13 different languages, mandatory climate change education, by the way, protecting felony prostitution records, making sure that those are sealed and you can't have access to them. So that's what they've debated, what legislation they debated this year. Now, I don't know about you, but I went through that list. Did you hear anything about real reform? Did you hear anything about property tax relief or budget transparency or pension reform? No, crickets. Deet, 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 deet. Crickets. They were talking about registering 15-year-olds to vote and creating a commission to redesign the I voted stickers. That's all they ignore the big stuff year after year after year, and things that would actually help families, small businesses, and our future generation. Our future generation, by the way, who is leaving in record numbers, droves. Everyone under 18 is leaving. As soon as they leave for college, they never come back. So you're probably wondering why they even show up to Springfield. Here's your answer. Okay, they're going to debate all this nonsense. Like I said, cancer care for assisted living. Why are our state lawmakers debating that? Okay, that is something that should be sorted out at the assisted living facilities and worked out amongst the professionals who are in assisted living facilities. Why are they getting their noses and putting their noses into something like that? Not to mention climate change mandating, climate change education, all of that. So you're probably wondering to yourself, wait a second, Kat, if they're just debating nonsense, all of that was nonsense, not necessary. If they're just debating nonsense, why did they even show up? The answer is pork. So this year alone, lawmakers secured, according to the Center Square, this is an op-ed, $237 million in goodies for their home districts. So here's the breakdown. That's about $3 million, so $237 million in goodies for their home districts. That's about $3 million per state senator and $1.5 million per state representative. So here's the kicker. The Democrats were majority. They give their money, the money to their own members. So the Democrat districts, this is Chicago, for example, Chris Welch, the House Speaker, this $40 million sports complex is included in this $237 million number. Okay, so the kicker here is that most of the districts represented by Republicans. So that would be Central Illinois, Downstate Illinois, a little bit up north, basically anything that's not Chicago. Those communities got zitch, nada. Okay, they got zip. Those communities. So they are not only wasting your money, but they're using it as a political weapon. If your lawmaker isn't on the governor's good list, then you and your neighbors will pay the price, because your state legislator, if he's not on the good list or the good boy list for the governor, then your legislator is not going to secure millions for the district. Okay. So it's like mob rule, except they're wearing suits and they're in committees and they're in committee chairs with fancy little laptops. Okay, so let's review the fallout for everyday Illinoisans. We have the number one state in local tax burden in the United States. Our property taxes are double than the national average. Unemployment rate is higher than the national rate. Our unemployment rate is higher than that. We have the number one state, like I said, in local tax burden. Our property taxes are double than the national average. Working age adults are fleeing. So 18 or under 18, they're leaving and they're going to college elsewhere and they're not coming back. And our young people are fleeing the state of Illinois. Students leave for college. They don't come back. We are educating, by the way. And Pritzker's whole like kindergarten thing where he wants kindergarten to be 8 hours a day, which is just terrible because kids that age, they really just want snack time and to be with mom. But we are dumping so much money into educating our kids for 12 plus years, trying to get them as early as possible. You know, as soon as they come out of the womb, let's throw them into public indoctrination camps. I won't even call them public schools. Let's throw them into the public indoctrination camps. And we're spending so much money on these schools. You're getting taxed, sales tax that just went up for McLean County. It was a 1% sales tax hike. Your property taxes go up every single year for the schools. You're spending so much money on these schools and you're strengthening other states' economies. So you're educating these kids, you're investing in these kids, hoping that they'll stay here and they'll help our economy. But actually what's happening, those kids grow up and then they leave to other states' economies and they become a part of their tax bases. Okay, so Illinois families invest in the future, but Springfield squanders it. So you and I, we're working, we're, paying our property taxes, and we're investing in our kids at these public schools. But then Springfield squanders that because of all of the overregulation, the high taxes. They won't have these serious conversations. And the reason why you're paying so much for the schools, by the way, is because the unfunded pension liability. But what the hell is the point if the kids aren't even staying here? There's millions, billions of dollars being dumped into education, but the kids aren't even staying. So they're going to other states' economies and they're helping other states and becoming a part of their tax bases. So this is the very definition of failing governance. Like I said, unemployment is higher than the national average here in the state of Illinois. Working age adults are fleeing. Students are leaving for college, never coming back. We have the highest property taxes in the nation. Number one state for local tax burden in the U.S. So some of the highest property taxes in the nation. I think we're number 2, somewhere around there. But anyway, as believers, we know that stewardship is sacred. Romans 13 says, government is instituted by God for the good of the people, not the indulgence of the rulers. Okay. But we're seeing this in Illinois, that Illinois is not doing a public service. They are not providing a public service. They're doing vanity projects, pet projects, in order for them to continue to get elected. It's lazy, it's deceptive, and they wrap all of this laziness, vanity projects, and deception up in public good language. Okay, because like I said, those bills like the catheter care, like, are people really against catheter care in assisted living? No. Should they even be talking about it at a state level and in Springfield? Absolutely not. Okay, if there are assisted living facilities that aren't providing catheter care, that's a problem, and they should just be phased out. Like, most likely, if your loved one is at an assisted living facility and they're not getting the proper care, you're going to write a bad review, you're going to pull them out, and you're going to take them to somewhere that provides good assisted living care, right? So the problem will fix itself. They don't need to debate this. Okay. They definitely don't need to be debating registering 15-year-olds to go vote. They don't need to be debating court translators for 13 different languages when we should have one language in the United States. So yes, I want to wrap this up. Because there are some things that we really need to focus on here in the state of Illinois, and we need to have the big conversations, not these stupid little conversations about redesigning the I voted sticker or whatever. Okay, the state needs pension reform, the state needs spending cuts, tax relief, and transparent budgeting, not passing a budget in the dead of night. Okay, needs lawmakers who know the value of the dollar, because the dollar comes from working families. These people don't understand that because they've never worked a day in their life, and they've worked in the nonprofit sector, and that's not real. Okay. So here's my call to action. Stay informed. Most of these bills were passed in the darkness, by the way. Expose them. Elect better leaders, and elect leaders who read the Bible and the budget. Elect leaders who understand how to budget and won't buy 10 wedding cakes and 10 venues and 10 caterers, because that's not like real life, without checking the balance. Okay, that's essentially what they did with all of these bills. They introduced over 6,000 of them, and of those, about 4,000 of them, they cost the taxpayers money, but they wouldn't know that. And of those, they only asked for a handful of fiscal notes, like, hey, how much is this going to cost? So pray for courage, pray for your lawmakers, pray for business owners trying to live honestly in a dishonest system. Share this episode out with your friends. Subscribe to the channel right now. And remember, Isaiah 1:23 says this: your rulers are rebels, companions of thieves. They love all bribes and chase after gifts. Yes. That, if that doesn't describe Illinois government, I don't know what does. This is Illinois government in verse 123. They're chasing after gifts, pet projects for their districts so they can continue to get elected, and they're not having serious conversations. All right. Today's episode, I want to talk about a rare moment. This is the big, beautiful bill. It was passed. And it was passed for working class Americans, this bill. So I want to get to no taxes on tips. AOC is big mad about this. So we're going to play a clip of AOC here coming up. But this was a tax breaks for people who refill your coffee, for people who sweep salon floors and carry your bags up flights of stairs. I believe they've passed the one big, beautiful bill. I got to take a quick break, but while I take a break, subscribe to the channel. Hold on. Welcome to Conservative Cat Clips, where we deal with the truth, not talking points. I'm your host, Kat, and today we're putting a spotlight on something the abortion industry wants to keep you in the dark about: abortion pills. What are they? How do they work? And how are they hurting women? Let's talk about the facts. Over 54% of abortions in America are now done using chemical abortion pills. That number is climbing fast. Why? Because it's easier, it's cheaper, and it's quieter. But here's what they won't tell you. Abortion pills come with a serious risk. The process is two drugs: mifepristone, which actually ends the pregnancy, and misoprostol, which forces the body to expel the baby. Sounds simple, right? It's not. According to the FDA, 4,200 serious adverse events have been reported, including 28 deaths since 2000, the year 2000. And those are just the official numbers. In 2021, there was a peer-reviewed study that found that ER visits after chemical abortions increased by over 500% between 2002 and 2015. And here's the kicker. Many of these cases are coded as miscarriages, and they're coded as miscarriages because women don't, or they can't, tell the hospital what actually happened and that they actually took these pills. That means the real damage, probably much worse. So way more than 4,200 adverse events since 2000. Now brace yourself. The Biden administration made it to where these pills were accessible by the mail, with no person exam, no ultrasound, and no guarantee that the pregnancy had to be an ectopic pregnancy. So, I mean, you could be taking these in your 6 months, 7 months, 8 months along. And it's not, this could be deadly if you take it when it's not an ectopic pregnancy. Women are being told to take these powerful drugs and there's zero medical supervision. That's not healthcare. It's called negligence. It's medical negligence. And we're seeing heartbreaking stories about all these women who are bleeding alone in dorm rooms, bathrooms, parking lots, or even in their own cars in the parking lot. Clinics like Planned Parenthood calls this empowerment and empowering, but tell me how it's empowering to hand a teenager a handful of pills and say, good luck. The emotional fallout is just as real, by the way. There's a physical risk, but there's an emotional risk as well. Women reported feeling abandoned, traumatized, and even haunted by what they've done, especially when they see the tiny, tiny body of their baby passing and passing that. It's traumatizing, and nobody tells them that they're going to see the tiny baby in the pamphlet. So here's the truth, the plain and simple truth. Abortion pills are not safe. They're not kind, and they're not empowering. They actually hurt women, and they silence their pain by taking these chemical abortion pills, and they protect an industry by keeping the abortion in the dark. And it doesn't do anything to protect the individual at all. I'm Kat, and this has been Conservative Clips, Cat Clips, reminding you that real healthcare, it doesn't kill people, and real healthcare means empowering women and supporting women, not selling them lies in a bottle. Stay alert, stay bold, and always choose light. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. Hey, good morning. This is Conservative Cat. I want to clarify, it's been kind of up in the air of when they are going to pass this thing. And it's just happening in real time. So in real time, here we go on Tuesday, Republican senators passed Trump's mega bill. I'm just giving you an update by a tie-breaking following intense negotiations and a marathon of voting sessions on amendments. Vice President J.D. Vance cast the decisive vote that will allow the bill to pass 51 to 50. It came after Republican senators voted against it. So, from what I'm understanding, is that this vote will take place eventually today. I think that is going to happen today where they actually pass it. It's very close. Jeffries, he was on the House floor, or he's going to go on the House floor. He's going to talk about his opposition. Of course, all the Democrats call this the one big ugly bill. But Speaker Johnson is expected to follow Jeffries once he's done with his opposition. Now, remember, Hakeem Jeffries, Donald Trump says he wants to sign the bill by July 4th. Pretty American, pretty patriotic. But Jeffries, he has unlimited time to speak about his opposition because he's the House Democrat leader. And then Johnson, he'll deliver probably a much shorter speech, and then it'll likely come to a final vote and be swiftly passed. So I am going to provide you updates as this goes on. But we are going to be talking about no tax on tips today. This provision within the bill. It's a huge bill, a mega bill, if you will. Today's episode, this is a rare moment in Washington where there is a tax break here actually for the working class Americans, not a $1 billion bailout, not solar subsidies or EV subsidies for Silicon Valley, but an actual tax break for folks who you see every single day. Folks like waitresses or salon people. So Congress, they are going to pass. I don't foresee this not getting passed. They are going to pass this one big, beautiful bill shortly, probably today. And hidden in this enormous piece of legislation is something that temporarily exempts certain tipped income from federal taxes starting in 2025. Okay, so this is starting in 2025. Yes, you heard that right. Tips, those hard-earned dollars left by grateful customers, may finally get a little relief from Uncle Sam's grubby, greedy hands. Okay. So this is what the bill does. It's what the bill does, what the bill doesn't do, because there's a lot of misinformation about this. And if you're a waitress or a tipped employee, you are definitely going to want to listen to this because it's important because there's some things the bill does and doesn't do. So let me get into this. Under the law, starting in 2025, certain tipped workers, not all tipped workers, so not your Starbucks barista. Okay, this is going to be people who are traditionally tipped workers. They are going to not have to pay federal income taxes on their tips. Now, this is a temporary exemption. It only goes for a few years, 2025 to 2028. And it applies to workers, like I said, who are historically tipped. So think restaurants, salons, bars, hotels. Okay, these are people who are historically tipped. Now, it's not a total no tax holiday. It's not totally awesome because they still have to pay on payroll taxes. That's your Social Security, your Medicare on that income. So you're going to have to pay a little bit out of that tipped income, but you don't have to pay income taxes on it. So it's temporarily paused for 3 years. Now, on the Senate side, there's a Senate version of this bill, and this is important. It's capped. Okay, so under the Senate version of the big, beautiful bill, there's $25,000 in tips. You make $25,000 in tips, say, okay. Now, after $25,000, so $25,001, you will have to start paying income taxes on that. Okay, so it's capped at how much you can pay or not pay income taxes on it. So $25,000 in tips can be exempted per worker per year, and high income earners are excluded. So it's not as great as you would think. This was obviously a compromise. I think that it should go way further, in my opinion. That I don't like the idea that so you go and you work and you bust your butt serving a table, and if somebody wants to pay you a little extra, why the hell would you have to pay taxes on that? It's just not fair. So who benefits from this? Your local bartender, your local diner, your single mom who's waitressing at Applebee's, your hairdresser scraping by to buy groceries, okay? In other words, real Americans, real people. Now, you're going to get people who say, this is going to cost a ton of money over the next decade. It's going to cost us $107 billion. The Tax Foundation estimates a cost, so costing the government, by the way, that this exemption could cost anywhere from $31 billion to $35 billion over 4 years. Okay, the House version of this bill. Like I said, there's two versions of the big, beautiful bill. The House version of this bill could cost anywhere between $31 to $35 billion over 4 years, cost the government that money, okay? And it's kind of small, or it's only that small because it's sunsetted at 2028. Okay, like I said, 4 years, that's it. Now, if it's extended, it's going to cost more. Like I said, $107 billion is what the Tax Foundation estimates. So, Tax Foundation analyst Alex Morshaner pointed out that this is a kind of carve out that has limited economic impact because it's very tightly restricted. I will say that the no tax on tips bill isn't as far as I'd like it to go. It's not going to have an crazy economic impact, but it is going to help those who are struggling, real Americans who, hey, I got to choose between groceries this month and filling my car. Those types of tipped employees, okay? So, people are saying that this is going to redefine tipping, and people are going to no longer have wages or salaries, and they're going to try to transition off of that model. And you could go from, like your banker is not going to want a wage or a salary anymore, and they're going to want to shift to a tipped income. That's not true. There's protections in the bill about that. You'll hear that from AOC is one of those where she says, oh, well, now every industry is going to be tipped. We're already kind of like getting there. Like Starbucks employees want tips now. But I wouldn't mind tipping my surgeon. I mean, right? Like, hey, thanks for, cutting me up, sewing me back together and saving my life there. Doc, here's a tip, right? I wouldn't mind doing that. But it's not going to change the way professions are traditionally paid because there's protections in the bill in place that says, like, hey, this is only for historical tipped industries, historically tipped industries. So those are your hotel workers, your salon, and your food industry, okay? Really what this is about hard workers getting a break and finally catching a break. So I get it. You're also going to probably hear people say, oh, this was just a PR stunt because it doesn't go far enough. And this is a scam, as AOC says, and we're going to get to her. Look, very rarely do you see Washington act like they care about the little guy. They won't even pretend to care about the little guy. So this is the first time probably in my lifetime where there is a shift happening where we're rewarding people for hard work and work that is actually real. I want to take a step back. Let's look at Romans 13. It tells us that government has the authority to collect taxes. Yes, government has the authority to collect taxes. But Matthew 22 tells us, render unto Caesar what is Caesar, not what belongs to your family, your table, and your church, okay? So that's what Matthew 22 says. Yes, give Caesar's what's Caesar's, but don't give them what belongs to your family. Don't give them what belongs to your church and to your table and to feed your family. And we're getting to a point where the taxation is so bad, where they're not just taking what's theirs, they're taking what's theirs and then some. So the book of 1 Timothy reminds us the laborer deserves his wages. Yes. And what happens when government punishes those wages with overtaxations? You're not just taxing money, you're taxing dignity. Okay, so what we're doing, we're giving these people some dignity back, these tipped workers. And we're saying, hey, we're not going to penalize you for working hard. So there's a shift, and it's really like a symbolic shift, even if it's not as it goes as far as I'd like it to. This provision, this no tax on tips, I think that is going to be a great thing for society. Culturally, we're going to start to see a shift where Becky, who works at the PR consultant firm and really doesn't do much, or works at a nonprofit, she is no longer going to be celebrated and given all kinds of tax credits and breaks and grants. Instead, we've shifted that mentality, and we've decided to reward those who actually do hard work and actually keep America functioning. Okay, so we believe in a society where the dishwasher works a double shift. I think that we should live in a society where we honor that guy more than the lobbyist who writes himself a loophole. Okay. The nonprofit organizations who, lobby all day long in your capital and try to get as much money as they possibly can in the form of grants. I think that we should reward the dishwasher who's washing your dishes, and we should honor them in society much more than the lobbyist or Becky, who works at a PR consulting firm. Okay. It doesn't really do much. So there is a shift happening, and that's what the big, beautiful bill really is all about. There's things that I don't like in it. Like I said, I think that the provision doesn't go far enough. The no tax on tips. It should be permanent. This exemption is flawed and temporary, but it moves us in this direction, and a direction that we need more of. That, hey, we're no longer going to uplift the losers of society anymore. We're going to uplift the people who do things with their hands, make things, and actually are the backbone of America, working families. State Senator Chris Bulkema, he's a Republican from Shanahan. He filed a bill. Well, he co-sponsored a bill. And it's called Senate Bill 140. So he wants to do this at a state level, which would be awesome, where you don't have to pay state income taxes on your tips anymore. That would be really cool. So he said, quote, "This is going to give a break to average working people." God bless him, because in Illinois, we're not just getting taxed, by the way, by the feds. We're getting taxed. We have some of the highest state and local tax burdens in the nation. At this point, I'm shocked that they haven't taxed us to breathe yet. They tax you when you die, your real estate taxes. And it's just so awful where you get taxed. They're talking about a mileage tax now. They raise your gas taxes every year without your say so. They crafted into a 2019 law. Thanks, Republicans, because there were 20 Republicans who voted for that. Don't you forget it, including Dan Brady, the mayor of Bloomington now. So they voted to where your gas it goes up every single year, and it's adjusted for inflation. That tax is adjusted for inflation, and they just take more and more every single year, July 1st. So God bless this guy, Chris Folkman, where he is saying, no, we're going to provide relief to restaurant workers, hotel staff, barbers, stylists, valets, anyone who lives and dies on these, service tips. Now, the bill hasn't moved, the state version of really this provision within the big, beautiful bill. It's stuck in committee. We're going to have to see if he gets some bipartisan support and actually passes this thing. He says that he hopes to reintroduce this in the fall, and we should support that. Call your legislators, tell them to support Senate Bill 140. Now, I want to get to AOC, the bartender here. She is against the no tax on tips provision, which tells you all you really need to know. She has proved that it was not, this bartender that lived paycheck to paycheck, by coming out against this and saying, quote, "This is a deal with the devil." This is what she said about the no tax on tips provision. Let's take a listen. Here we go. Oh, hold on. Here we go. There we go.
Tax on tips. As one of the only people in this body who has lived off of tips, I want to tell you a little bit about the scam of that text, a little bit of the fine print there. The cap on that is $25,000. While you're jacking up taxes on people who make less than $50,000 across the United States, while taking away their SNAP, while taking away their Medicaid, while kicking them off of the ACA and their healthcare extensions. So if you're at home and you're living off tips, you do the math. Is that worth it to you? Losing all your health care, not able to feed your babies, not being able to put a diaper on their bottom in exchange for what? This bill is a deal with the devil. On this point.
Okay, so lots there. I wonder if, and I'm going to share this with you now, I wonder if she would say the same thing had Kamala Harris gotten in and Kamala Harris had been backing a bill that had the no tax on tips provision in it. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
And eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers. And eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers.
Okay, so the Democrats in the House of Representatives, they voted on no taxing on tips. AOC, she's wrong there. I just told you all the truth. Okay, so there are some things that are true about that. In the Senate version of the bill, there is a cap, okay, which I don't understand why she brought up the Senate version. Must have been when it went over to the House. The Senate version of the bill went over to the House and she was talking about this one. It has the $25,000 cap. She is right about that. However, she's wrong when she says that the BBB is going to raise taxes on people making less than $50,000 a year. That's not true. Now, here's what she's talking about, what I think she's talking about. The Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP benefits. Yes, those are going to be taken away from able-bodied people who aren't working. Okay, and they're not making, $40,000, $50,000 a year, and it's going to feel like a tax hike to those people if they have to all of a sudden go work. Okay, it's going to feel rough for those people, but we're talking about people meeting a work requirement of 20 hours a week. That's nothing. Okay, that's 5 hours a day. Not even. It's like 4 hours a day. Okay, working 4 hours a day. Monday through Friday, part-time, and you have to be able-bodied and you have no dependents. That's who it extends to, able-bodied, young, and no dependents. Okay. So that's a very small portion of people who are going to be affected. They keep saying millions of people, millions upon millions. Well, if there's millions upon millions of people who are robbing taxpayers, like if you guys want to go and pay, say to a nonprofit organization or whatever and make donations and pay for people to sit on their butts and collect food stamps and collect Medicaid. If you guys want to set up a fund, a GoFundMe and do that for people, by all means, go do it. You're not taking my taxpayer dollars to go do that for people who are able-bodied and can go work. They just choose not to. So yes, it is going to feel pretty tough for those types of people who are abusing the system and wasting and committing waste and abuse and fraud, really. It's going to feel like a tax hike on those people. So critics argue that tipping should be taxed like any other income. And no, they're not entirely wrong. Yes, fairness is important. Fairness matters. But we live in a system that has long penalized low-income workers, while big money industries exploit every credit, deduction, and like your EV credits, right? These industries that make tons of money, they get bailouts, they get tax credits all the time. And this is finally a little bit of relief to people who have been penalized, low-income hard workers. Okay, so let me ask you, should a restaurant server making $28,000 a year pay the same tax rate on tips that a Wall Street executive pays on bonuses? No, I don't think so. I think that, it's been a long time coming where they've penalized actual workers. Okay. And, You get your corporate farmland, they get tax breaks, and these big farmers, they get all kinds of tax breaks and credits. But your hostess at Cracker Barrel doesn't. Okay, what Donald Trump is doing here is actually very not traditional in the Republican sense of the word. Okay, like he's not being a traditional Republican here. He is actually uplifting those who are or what the left would call marginalized, or people who have been penalized for far too long. So this isn't about creating loopholes. This is about recognizing that our tax code is already broken and it's rigged against working people, and it's rigged in favor of people who don't work and don't provide a service or a product of value. So AOC's wrong. She's lying to you when she says that this is going to raise taxes on low-income folks. It's going to feel like a tax hike if you are one of those people who make no money and don't contribute to the revenue at all, and don't contribute at all, and then you just take from the system. Yeah, it's going to feel like a tax hike to those people. So like I said, this tax exemption on the House side, it expires 2028. Actually, on the House and Senate versions, expires 2028. And it's designed to quietly kind of expire. Okay, so this means that the next president and Congress are going to have to act on this, and the Democrat majority probably will kill this thing in 2028 if there's a Democrat majority. So what we have to do is make sure, one, that they don't get the majority. Two, we get a president there who pushes for the no tax on tips to be extended. The truth is, it shouldn't be expired. It shouldn't have an expiration date. This should be permanent. There's no reason why you should pay more if somebody says, well, they did a really good job, I want to pay them a little bit more in a tip. There's no reason why you should have to pay for that, for being a good worker, okay, and penalized for being a good worker. So it should be permanent. It should be expanded to more working class Americans. That $25,000 threshold should go up higher. But for now, it's a start. And it proves something very important, that tax relief is possible when people demand it. Tax relief for hardworking folks is possible when people demand it. So if you're a Christian, you are called to care about justice, not just in the courtroom, but in the workplace and the marketplace. Okay, and this is justice, what's going on here, because for far too long, the nerds, I'll call them nerds, have taken over essentially and have gotten all of the tax breaks and credits for doing nothing except lobbying and being a pencil pusher. And enough's enough. The Bible speaks often about weights and measures and fair pay, and about honest labor and corrupt rulers. We are shifting culturally to where we are rewarding honest labor. So this tax break is a chance to reward labor and honor the dignity of service and push back against a system that often favors wealth over work. So here's what we can do. We can support bills at a state level, like Senate Bill 140. Call your legislator, say, hey, I want you to support Senate Bill 140. You can vote for leaders who believe in the real working class and believe in real working class reform. You'll often hear Governor J.B. Pritzker, because that's who most Americans are. You'll often hear him say, I'm for working families. He's not dumb. He knows that most Americans, most Illinoisans are working class folks, people who are in the tip industry. He's not dumb, but we all know who actually gets the money and who he actually favors in Springfield. That's the people who are in the nonprofit sector and say that they're going to combat a cause, or they're going to combat a problem, and they're for this cause, and this is our mission statement, so give us money. And he gives all the money to them, or he gives all the money to these, unions, these public sector unions, and awards them contracts. These unions and the people who are in the pockets of the politicians. We know that those are the people who are rewarded in the state of Illinois, not actually working class folks. There's a reason why his slogan is working class families, because we are the majority, people who work real jobs. So pray for boldness, because even good bills die in dark rooms if no one stands up. So the good bill would be Senate Bill 140, which does the same thing at a state level. So these bills will die in the dark if nobody stands up and expresses support for them. All right, let's get to the tantrum today. Hope Walz threw a tantrum. Hope Walz is the daughter of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, and today we are remembering that being loud and being vulgar does not make you right. Okay, Hope. Now, she responded to Alligator Alcatraz. I talked a lot about this yesterday. I'm not against it. I think that it's a great idea. I think that there is a little bit of truth to this. I mean, we have to admit this, that it looks like Ron DeSantis is maybe posturing a little bit, trying to boost his national profile by coming out with something like Alligator Alcatraz. Could you imagine, by the way, if Kamala Harris were to become president in 2028, and she's pulling one of the highest, her, AOC, Jasmine Crockett, like what a world we live in where they're pulling the highest. Governor J.B. Pritzker, there was a poll where he only pulled up like 2% if he were a Democratic contestant in the Democratic race in 2028. So imagine if Kamala Harris come back. What would they do with the Alligator Alcatraz? How would they, I would imagine that they'd go in there and give all the alligators DEI training, implicit bias training, get some yoga mats out there for the alligators and for the MS-13 gang members who are there, and just talk about their feelings all day. That's how I'd imagine the Alligator Alcatraz being transformed under a Democrat president, if that were a reality. But I don't think that's going to happen. Anyway, Hope, she said in her own words about the Alligator Alcatraz, "What the F?" Now, I'm not going to say the whole word because my mother taught me to not speak like that in public. But here's Hope Walz. And warning, if your kids are watching, I rarely do this, but it's very important that I show you how profane her language is, because I think that it shows you something about the parenting style that of Tim Walz and Gwen Walz. Okay. So it's important. So this is your warning. Hey, there is going to be profanity here in the next couple of seconds. Take a listen to this. Here we go.
Alligator Alcatraz. Are we fucking serious right now? These people are literally supervillains. But they're not very good at it. They're just fucking cruel. Because what the fuck? Alligator Alcatraz? Are you fucking kidding me? I don't even know what to say. I'm like trying to process. What the fuck? That's like literally all I have to say. What the actual fuck? If this doesn't tell you these people are fucking losers, nothing else will. Legitimately. Who does this shit to people? I don't care if you don't like someone. Who does that shit to people? Like at this point, they're just like making up the cruelest ways they can torture people they don't like because of their skin color, where they're from. Wake the fuck up, America. Seriously. We're supposed to be celebrating the 4th of July and we have fucking Alligator Alcatraz.
Okay. So, first of all, let's start with something basic. Character matters, whether you're the daughter of a governor or you're a waitress working double shifts. What comes out of your mouth reveals your heart. Jesus said in Luke 6:45 now I'm not saying I don't cuss. Okay. I slip up and I cuss, and I am an imperfect person, and I am saved by the grace of God through the blood of the Lamb. But Jesus said in Luke 6:45, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So when someone, their first response to a policy that they don't like or disagree with, their first response is to unleash such vulgarity, okay, instead of reason. That's not courage. That's a meltdown. Okay, that's a tantrum. It's called a Twitter tantrum, I would say. So quite frankly, Governor Walz, I'm disappointed in how you raised your daughter, to be honest. She's screaming F-bombs, and screaming F-bombs does not make you sound more informed or compassionate. And I don't think that he really raised her up in wisdom there. He raised her to be entitled and to be emotional and overly emotional, and have this sense of emotion. Like, you can disagree with policy, folks, and not lose your freaking mind. Okay. Now I like I said, I cuss. Sometimes it's warranted. But whether you're the daughter of a governor or a waitress working double shifts, what comes out of your mouth is very, very important. And when you disagree with policy, I don't know. I think that was a bit extreme. Let me know in the comment section. Maybe I'm a total jackwagon for saying that about her, but I just think that was a little over the top. There were too many F-bombs in that to where I didn't even really understand her disagreement. All I heard was F this, F that, F this. So let's get to the point here. President Trump, he actually recently visited this migrant detention facility. And by detention facility, I mean that these people are probably going to be housed for not more than a day or two. And I agree with it. I think that the deterrence aspect here and the kind of like showboating, I would guess, that Ron DeSantis is doing, I think that it's hilarious. I think that it's exactly what he needs to do if he wants to be on the national stage or a vice presidential pick of J.D. Vance or wherever. This is exactly what he's to be doing. It makes a ton of sense. However, I will say that it's not nearly like Alligator Alcatraz is not like where these people are going to go and be fed to alligators. These people are going to go there. There's tents. Now I've heard mixed reports that they are air conditioned or that they aren't or air conditioned. It really doesn't matter if you're going to be there for a day or two. You're going to be showered. You're going to be fed. This is what Ron DeSantis says. And hey, you're going to be deported. Like, you're not going to be here very long. This is like quite literally just a processing center. It's on an airstrip, an abandoned airstrip in the middle of the Everglades. And there's like a moat quite literally around this airstrip full of alligators. You won't want to leave. Okay. So that's the point. You won't be able to run from this detention center. So Trump called it effective. He said, quote, "This facility will have some of the most menacing migrants, some of the most vicious people on the planet." The left calls this cruel. He goes on, he says, "We're surrounded by miles of treacherous swampland, and the only way out of here really is deportation. A lot of these people are going to be self-deporting." So, yeah. Let me ask you this, America. Is it cruel to protect your home? Is it cruel to put a front door on your door, or like to put a door and a lock on your house? Okay. Is it cruel to protect your children? Is it cruel to protect your country? America is our home. We should treat it like our home. And this is the most menacing migrants. I want to be very clear. Your MS-13 gang members, the people who kill people for fun, are going to be here, and then they're going to be processed here. And it's not like months at a time that they're staying. Max a couple of weeks or a week or something like that. Okay. This is a center where they will have the National Guard. There's actually going to be National Guard legal teams where they draft up the deportation orders, and then they, double check, triple check that, hey, they aren't actual asylum seekers. This person really needs to be deported. And these are going to be the most menacing of migrants who come here, or illegals. I don't want to even use that term. Illegals who go to Alligator Alcatraz. Romans 13 says, "Government exists to punish evildoers and to reward those who do good." Okay, it's not cruel to secure your border. It's biblical and it's responsible. Okay, and it's not even unbiblical to punish evildoers. Okay, it's not. That is a biblical thing. These are evil, evil people who are going to be here and processed very quickly. They're not going to stay there for a long period of time. There's tents for them. There's shelter. They're going to be fed. They're going to be showered. They're going to be just fine. Okay, but they can't leave because they're surrounded by alligators. So Hope claimed that somehow this is an attack on insignificant birth traits like somebody's nationality or the color of their skin. And this is about sovereignty, okay? This has nothing to do with skin color. Illegal immigration has nothing to do with skin color at all. It has everything to do with law, order, safety, and sovereignty, which the Bible is all about. Sovereignty and having nations. Now, if you start calling the detention of criminals, these are criminal people who are being processed and being deported out of this airstrip, okay? If you start calling that torture, you're not speaking truth. You're gaslighting America. This is not torture. And let's not pretend Hope is alone. Hope Walz is not alone here. Okay. The left routinely elevates emotion over evidence. Okay. The evidence here is the National Guard are going to be there with legal teams. There's tents. Some people say that they're air conditioned. I haven't been able to figure this out. I'm sure that there might be air conditioned tents. The left is saying, no, they don't have AC. I'm pretty sure that they've got AC. If not, I mean, still not bad for a couple of days. You're going to be just fine, especially when we're talking about the most menacing people of the world, your MS-13 gang members. These are very, very terrible people. She's not alone. They put emotion over evidence, and then they put their feelings over facts, and they throw their tantrums over the truth. And as Christians, we're called to be sober-minded, and we are called to love. We aren't called to empathy like I talked about yesterday. Love is sometimes a tough decision, okay? To love people is to take the people who are hurting them off of the streets, jail them, and punish the evildoers who are hurting the rest of society. Okay, sometimes that's what love looks like. Saying, hey, no, you can't rape women. Hey, no, you can't traffic children. MS-13, you can't drug traffic MS-13 gang member. That's wrong, and we're going to punish you for your evil works. That is love. I know that sounds crazy, but hey, that is love. That is the love of society and keeping people alive. And I don't know about you, but it's just. It's good. And she also brought up how, we shouldn't celebrate the 4th of July because of Alligator Alcatraz. Last time I checked, the 4th of July is a national holiday. If anything, we should be celebrating that Alligator Alcatraz is a thing because the 4th of July is a national holiday. Keyword national. Okay, let's not let people who want to erase our borders redefine our holidays here. 4th of July is about our sovereignty and us becoming a nation with borders. Okay, so they don't want, the people like Hope don't want America to be strong. They want us to be soft. They want us to be shameful. They want us to be submissive. Not on our watch. So like I said, this isn't just about Hope Walz. This is about a generation who's being taught to rage out on social media instead of going out and reasoning and looking at this thing that, hey, this is really, I mean, I love it. I'm not against it. I think that this is going to deter people from border jumping, especially into the state of Florida. I'm all for it, but I think that it is a little bit of political posturing from Ron DeSantis, and rightly so. He's got to go out there and, make a name for himself. And at the same time, if we can take the most menacing people off of the streets and deport them and get them out of here if they're illegal aliens, then yeah, I'm all for it. Proverbs 29:11 says, a fool gives full vent to his spirit, but a wise man quietly holds it back. So she's screaming all of these profanities, okay, in that clip that you saw, instead of seeking wisdom. Just close your mouth, hold it back a little bit. You don't have to scream on social media just because you disagree with the policy, okay? So we're watching the real results of fatherless leadership. broken homes, moral relativism play out in public. Okay, this is what I watched there. That is not a girl who has a strong father. Like, if my dad caught me with that kind of language, now I'm not saying I don't drop the F-bomb once in a while, but if I went on social media and started saying F this, F that, F this, F that, my dad would be so disappointed in me. So disappointed in me. He would, when I cussed, my mom and my dad, they got out the little fly swatter. What's wrong with you? Don't cuss in my household. Okay. This is what happens when we raise up a generation who can't process disagreement without losing their minds. So if you want America to come back, we need to start rebuilding the family, having strong father figures. I'm sorry, but that's evidence that Tim Walz is not a strong father figure. The fact that Hope thinks that she can go out and say those types of, that type of language, use that type of language, and not have any kind of consequences for that. And I don't care if she's the governor of the daughter or the daughter's governor, or if she was a waitress. Okay. You really shouldn't be speaking like that. So we need to rebuild the fear of God. By the way, I had the fear of my parents, but I also had the fear of God in my heart. I don't want to, there's power in the tongue. And we need to rebuild our border. We need to have sovereignty. All right. I am going to be right back. I got to take a quick break, but when we come back, you won't guess what blue state is pushing this new law. It's a new law that gives non-family members, so neighbors, teachers, a say in your child's medical care without telling you. We're going to get to that. Plus, UPenn erases Leah Thomas and gives her titles away to the girls who should have gotten them to begin with. So we're going to get to UPenn here in just a second. I'll be right back. Welcome back to Conservative Cat Clips, and this is the show that gives corruption a name, a face, and a one-way ticket to exposure. I'm Kat, and today we are taking a really hard look at the unholy alliance between Michael Madigan and the unions he used like pawns in his political empire. So let's be clear, unions in theory, sure, fair wages, nice, safe workplaces, all good, but under Madigan, unions weren't about workers. They were about votes, money, and absolute political control. Let's dig into it, shall we? Madigan built a fortress of influence using public sector unions, especially teachers, electrical workers, laborers, AFSCME. How'd he do it? Easy. He passed contracts that favored unions with big raises, ironclad job security, and pension sweeteners that simply Illinois could not afford. That's why we have the pension debt. Okay. In return, those unions pumped millions of dollars into campaign coffers, nearly $10 million from AFSCME alone, mostly directed to Madigan's machine-approved candidates. You get the contract, I get the cash, the taxpayers get screwed. This is a corruption carousel that we are on. It sounds familiar. Look at Illinois' pension crisis. Over $130 to $140 billion in pension debt and counting. Madigan and his union pals made promises that the state could never keep up just to win short-term votes. That's why we're in the pension crisis, stupid. Now we're stuck with the bill while they enjoy six-figure retirements at the age of 55. This wasn't just about money, though. Madigan used unions to intimidate the opposition. If you ran for office without a union backing, they'd swarm your district with mailers and door hangers and smear ads, and it's impossible to win if the union is backing said candidate. And they'll use the union to swarm your district, and you could never win against a Madigan machine-approved candidate. And this still goes on today in many areas of Illinois. you didn't run against Madigan, you ran against his Union Army, and it's still the case today. And then it's changed a little bit. Maybe it's unions and a little bit of nonprofit sector as well. In many areas of Illinois, you didn't run against Madigan or a Madigan candidate. You ran against an army. The best examples of this is in 2018, Madigan's campaign machine sent Union-backed operatives to attack Democratic reform candidates. Okay, yes, even people of his own party. Okay, if they dared question his ethics or if they dared run against one of his handpicked puppets, they would go and they'd send Union-backed operatives to go and attack Democrat reform candidates. Not quite literally, but, you know, the door hangers, the smear campaigns, all of that. And they had the money to do it because they kept getting the contracts from the government, from Madigan. And he had all the money in the world to do it because he kept getting the money from the unions. It's just this carousel, and you just keep getting screwed as a taxpayer. So don't forget about the shady deals. One union-linked lobbyist said that he felt obligated to hire Madigan's people just to get access to Springfield. That's not representation. That's racketeering with a pension plan. Okay. Now, even with Madigan under indictment and facing sentencing, he has 22 counts of corruption. Those union ties still linger. The same union leaders that backed him for decades, they're still sitting pretty. They're still funding candidates who won't touch reform with a 10-foot pole. None of these candidates want to touch reform with a 10-foot pole. Nobody's really denounced Madigan's political machine. Governor J.B. Pritzker surely hasn't. And this has been Conservative Cat Clips, reminding you that unions have become political weapons when solidarity becomes code. Solidarity is code. That word is code for corruption. And when the taxpayer is left holding the bag, that's not labor, that's a scam. Okay. Michael Madigan may be out of office, but his legacy lives on with bloated budgets, crony contracts, union bosses who still pull the strings from behind closed doors. And here's your homework, my folks, in Illinois. Follow the money, follow the endorsements, follow the corruption, because it always leads back to the same machine. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat. I'll grab a few of your chats today. Let's check this out. Governor Ron DeSantis didn't do this for POTUS 2028. It's more for his appointed, Attorney General James Utheimer, who must run for election next year. DeSantis is term limited. Yeah, I think you're right on that one. I've been seeing him come out a little bit more and more, the Attorney General, in the national spotlight, and I think that he's trying to he's going for re-election of the Attorney General, but maybe he's got his sights set for, some sort of national gig. James Utheimer, which these people I'm not against, even if Ron DeSantis was doing this to lift up his national status or, profile a little bit, I wouldn't be against it. I think that Ron DeSantis is a great Florida governor. I think that he's got a record that shows for it. Would I vote for him over J.D. Vance? Probably not. But yes, DeSantis has already made a name for himself. He's one of the most God-fearing leaders in the United States. I agree with you. I'm not against Ron DeSantis. I'm not against Alligator Alcatraz. I just think that it's getting blown up, and it's really not as big as a deal as the left would like to make it. Like, this is not where people are going to be thrown into a moat to be eaten by an alligator. Okay, that's not what this is. The name kind of is to be shock jockey. Okay, and there's a reason for that. And I think that you probably are more right than I am here, where James Utheimer is running for re-election this year, and he's got to get out there. He actually went after CDLs. So there was this big case in Florida where they were bribing. So the DMV workers were bribed to give CDLs to illegal immigrants. And he uncovered, the attorney general, along with other law enforcement, they uncovered this huge operation where the DMV workers were taking bribes in exchange. They were giving CDLs to illegal immigrants, which is a very big deal because, like I said, all of our roads signs are in English. You really don't want illegal immigrants driving 18-wheelers, okay? They're fear mongering, standard left stuff. Yeah, and I just want to, I'm downplaying the Alligator Alcatraz thing because it's not really that big of a deal. I mean, they're making it a big deal, Ron and possibly the Attorney General here, because there is benefits to this if you're running for election of an election of some kind. This is just your standard ICE detention center. It just so happens to be surrounded by a moat of alligators. Like, it's not anything like this stuff already happens. It's a great thing that they actually took this abandoned airstrip kind of that they weren't really using and then they repurposed it for the good of society. But they're just losing their minds over nothing, the left. Like, this is quite literally just a ICE detention center where they're going to be for a couple of days and then they're going to be deported. So they're not even being really imprisoned here. They're not being fed to alligators. They're not going to die. This is like a couple of days of maybe being slightly uncomfortable while you await a flight out of the country and you're being deported. Curious Cat, what you think about Congresswoman Nancy Mace's pajama road trip to DC that went viral this week? Would you do something like that? Well, I looked this up because I had not seen this. Nancy Mace is one of those, she is really one of those politicians that tries to get like grandstandy, clickbaity type politicians. She doesn't really do anything of value. There's very few congressmen, men and women who I would say provide value. Nancy Mace, so I'm just gonna read out of this. In one clip shared on X, she wears pajamas to a Wawa convenience store as AC/DC's 1979 tune Highway to Hell blasts in the background. If DC had a theme song, she captioned the post. And in separate post, she documents her ringing up 3 cans of Red Bull while holding her dog in her arms. Okay, so this is Nancy Mace. Another shows her posing for photos with Waffle House employees still in her pajamas. So she captioned that post, from one Waffle House waitress to another, thank you for showing up, working hard, and keeping the coffee hot. We haven't forgotten where we come from on to DC to vote for the big, beautiful bill. So social media users weren't universally charmed by her documentation of her road trip to Washington, D.C., and she was in her pajamas. Would I do something like that? No. I mean, this is all political posturing, okay? She had her flight canceled to D.C., so she rented a luxury van with a driver, put her jammies on, and had her staffer film her, okay, for social media clout. Okay, that's what, I mean, this is like social media clout, what she's trying to do here. Now, it's only an 8-hour drive from Charleston, South Carolina to DC. I don't know why she like made it out to be some sort of massive trek. Okay. I mean, I'm not totally against it. You have to do something to get elected, okay? And that's the world that these people live in. If I was a representative, I would just kind of operate quietly. Maybe I'm not meant for like a politician in like the public space, and because I really wouldn't want to like put myself out there on social media in my jammies. I'm not one of those people who will cuss on the, house floor or draw attention to myself. I'm just not one of those types of women. So I might not be cut out for political office because that seems to be like a requirement almost. I just want to not craft any bills. I want to get into the weeds, right, and look at all the nasty bills. And, I would put on my social media would be full of exposing all the nasty stuff that they're doing, either in Congress or Illinois Capitol, and what they, like I said, they were like literally passing bills about catheters at assisted living facilities, and they were debating legislation on that. They were debating legislation on gender inclusive state forms. So any kind of government form, they have to be gender inclusive. You have to ask, what kind of gender are you? And it has to be gender inclusive. You have to take out words like mother and father. They have to be gender neutral terms. Okay, like, I don't know what you would even call birth parent. I don't know. They have to be gender neutral terms. Like, they were debating stuff like that. So my social media would be full of screenshots of crazy things that my colleagues introduce, and a lot of that is just not like, let's deal with the meat and the potatoes. Okay, I don't really care about all these like stupid little things that you've got ideas about. Okay, you're not a legislator to bring your like shower thoughts to paper. Okay, like mandatory climate change education here in the state of Illinois. Like, who really cares? Okay, nobody really cares about all of that. Why are you bringing your shower thoughts to paper? Let's talk about the budget. Let's talk about pension reform. Let's talk about taxation relief. Okay, property tax relief. Let's talk about that stuff. So yeah, Nancy Mace, that was kind of funny. I'll have to pull up the clip and the social media post. She just, I don't know what's up with some of these Congress people. They just, take videos of themselves to try to get social media clout. And really what it is they know that they won't be there forever. And they probably want to get into some sort of media role. For example, Matt Gaetz, we saw him. He was one of those guys who did a lot of clouding, social media clouding. And sometimes it's necessary. Marjorie Taylor Greene, God bless her. Sometimes she, throws things on social media and you wouldn't even know what was going on without her and her social media presence. And there's things that Marjorie Taylor Greene, she actually was against President Donald Trump on something within the big, beautiful bill. And I thought that was totally wrong. So a lot of these people, they will go out there and just try to get as much social media clout because that's a fallback for if they don't wind up being in Congress anymore. We need congressional term limits, by the way. 100%. This would fix a lot of that. Social media clout, running around in my pajamas. I think it would fix a lot of that if we just said, nope, you're going to serve 2 terms. That's it. And we're going to reelect somebody else. So we need congressional term limits. And I think we also need state legislature term limits where your state senators and your state representatives don't get to be there for decades. People like Dick Durbin shouldn't be there for decades. Now, if you notice, and I will say this about Dick Durbin, he gets things done, not for the benefit of the public, but for the benefit of those who contribute to his campaign, Big Pharma. But you don't see Dick Durbin out there screaming. Tammy Duckworth is one of those screamers, one of those social media clout congressmen. Somebody who's not like that is Dick Durbin. Dick Durbin quietly legislates, and he legislates not for your benefit, but for the benefit of Big Pharma. For example, you guys know Patriot Pump Media, Patriot Pump Energy. You guys can go to patriotpumpenergy.com, get our supplement. I am very passionate about alternative medicine and supplements and not drugging yourself up and over vaccinating yourself and having, 30 plus vaccines. I'm all about alternative medicine and eating what's right for you, whole foods, right? So our supplement does just that. It's a natural supplement mostly. There's an artificial flavor. It's fruit punch, so it doesn't taste awful, but we don't put any coloring in it, so it's not like beet red. Like most pre-workouts you'll get. But what Dick Durbin tried to do was ban or get them to be regulated by the FDA, essentially, supplement companies. Okay. And he does this kind of stuff very quietly and you don't hear about it. And he's not out there grandstanding. And that is going to be huge for his donors, obviously Big Pharma. Because it's a competition. Okay, so supplement companies and people who Kraft. Hey, black pepper extract. We know the effects black pepper extract has on the brain. That's why we put it in our pre-workout. It keeps you focused and it's natural. You guys know what black pepper is. Okay, this is a natural substance for you to focus. So unlike those ADHD medications, this is going to provide you natural focus and enhance your workout and help you out throughout the day even. But the ADHD, the big pharma people who have those medications, I don't even know any of the medications offhand. But those people are going to get super rich if products like ours are taken off the market or are regulated heavily by the FDA, and it makes it impossible to get our product out to the masses. And I would be, subject to all kinds of disclaimers on this show. Like if I were promoting Patriot Pump, I would be subject to all kinds of disclaimers. And I would have to say all kinds of things about my product. And it's hard to market the product if you have a bunch of red tape. So Dick Durbin, he's one of those who operate very quietly in the dark, and he gets things done, not for the good of the people, but for the people who donate to his campaign. So yeah, I went off on a tangent there, but it's disappointing. You have a lot of these grandstanders in the Republican Party, and I'm not saying you shouldn't have any. You definitely need a few for the social media clout, because let's be honest, people click on that stuff and they eat it up and they're like, oh, that's interesting. So you need a couple of those, but you definitely need, and we need more people like this in the Republican Party who operate quietly and can push things for the benefit of the people. For example, this no tax on tips provision, whoever came up with that, I don't even know what congressman actually put his name to it. This was a Donald Trump initiative, but you're not going to know that congressman's name because he doesn't throw it out there, okay? Or the provisions within the bill that actually help people, the no tax on overtime, things that are actually of value, and they put their names behind it. You're not going to hear their names on social media because they operate quietly for a reason. The Democrats have figured this out. You've got your grandstanders as well. The AOCs, she's not really a serious person, Jasmine Crockett, but they've figured this out, and they have the Dick Durbins in their party who quietly push legislation and get things done. But they figured out, they call it the squad. So they actually have deemed people and given them a group name. Hey, this is the squad, and the squad are clickbaity type people. While they're doing that, we're going to shove legislation. Now, unfortunately for us, we have a lot of Republicans that I think compete for the spotlight and compete for clickbait and complete for that spotlight. And there's not enough Republicans who are willing to go about things quietly. And that's damaging to the party because you need Republicans who are going to go in there and just get it done for the American people. America first politicians. Josh Hawley, he's a little, he's not very clickbaity. You know of him because he's done really great things. He's done a lot of bipartisan legislation as well, Senator Josh Hawley. And he's one of those quiet type Republicans. You don't see him like a Nancy Mace or a Marjorie Taylor Greene or a Matt Gaetz type. You don't see him as much. And the reason why is because he's quietly working with these Democrats, and he actually puts out bipartisan legislation that is pro-America and anti-establishment, anti-Republican establishment, anti-Democrat establishment. And they're actually pro-American bills that he's pushed. All right, I went down a rabbit hole. That was not part of my show today. Let's get to UPenn. UPenn, they, let's first get to this bill, this bill in California. Okay, so before I took the break, I was telling you about a Democratic state, blue state, who passed this law, which is really, really sad. Really, when I read this morning, I was like, you got to be kidding me. They actually did this. So you know that you can't give your kid an Advil without parental consent. Okay. However, In what some see as a progressive effort to undermine parental rights, the state of California is working on a bill that would allow unrelated adults, so family, friends, neighbors, teachers, to make medical decisions for children if they simply fill out an affidavit. So, what is this bill? This is in California. 300,000 children, by the way, unaccounted for because of the border crisis, Biden's border crisis. They migrated to the United States, unaccounted for. Where are they? California's answer to this 300,000 children who are unaccounted for in the United States is to permit anyone over the age of 18 or older, to fill out a one-page affidavit claiming guardianship over the child. And schools cannot call CPS, okay? No proof of kinship needed, okay? A relative by marriage, 5 times removed, or a friend, okay, or a neighbor, a trafficker, a human trafficker, all of that is fine. So that no kinship, no nothing. This is about a friend, a teacher, a neighbor having medical decisions over children, okay, and all you need to do is fill out a single form, okay, and on this form, you have to swear that you tried to inform the parents but couldn't reach the parents. So I'm going to get to what the affidavit really says and what the paper looks like. But the kid is not yours, but you're claiming the kid is like in your guardianship, and you will be able to make medical decisions on behalf of that child if you are not related to this child in any way, and if you just fill out this affidavit. So California is home to some of the most crazy sex traffickers, and it shouldn't be a wonder. We shouldn't be confused. Hey, why is California home to a lot of sex traffickers? It's because of bills like AB 49.5. And if this passes, really what Democrats are doing, they are putting politics over children. This is very dangerous to children, specifically those 300,000 children that are unaccounted for and have been unaccounted for since Joe Biden's border crisis. So this is a very, very bad idea. According to the Post-Millennial, the bill is working through the California state legislature and would allow adults not related to children or a child to consent to medical care for the minor, potentially without informing the child's legal guardians. So I'm just curious. Medical care, most likely this is something to do with trans affirming procedures. What they're trying to pass this off as is like if an immigrant child, his or her parents are deported, then the teacher can take over guardianship if they just fill out this affidavit, which one is not happening. The children are being deported with their parents. They're being asked, hey, we're deporting your child with you. And that's what we're going to do. Is that okay? Or is there a legal citizen that this child can go stay with? And if not, then we are going to deport the child with you. Okay, the minor. That's what's going on and what the Trump administration is doing as far as deportations. Okay, Tom Homan. Now, AB 49.5 passed the assembly. Oh, it's officially passed. I was thinking that it wasn't going to be passed. This officially passed recently, 62-7. It's in the Senate now. Okay, and they're set to vote on it. So that passed the House. They're set to vote on it again in the Senate. It has to pass both houses. They're set to vote on it again on July 1st and July 7th. Celeste Rodriguez introduced the legislation. Non-relative or extended family member, okay, is defined in the legislation as, quote, being any adult caregiver who has established a familial or mentoring relationship with the child and who has established a familial relationship with a relative of the child. So examples include teachers, medical professionals, neighbors, family, friends, right? Because neighbors and teachers can totally make decisions for your child, even though the parents have known them since birth and gave birth to them, okay, and created them. This is total nonsense, and I'm sure that this is not in the child's best interest, okay? Really what this is, it is a way to override parental rights and to attack parental rights. Now, the amended caregiver's authorization affidavit. Okay, so this is what gives the person, the stranger, guardianship over the child. It is an affidavit. And there's a couple of sections I want to talk about in this affidavit. So there's one box that says that the state, or there's a caregiver, the caregiver is required to check a box that states that they have either advised the minor's parents about the intent to authorize medical care. So you yourself, as the stranger making the medical decision for the child, you are required to go to the parent and say, hey, I intend to make this medical decision on this child's behalf. Or you can check the box that says, I am unable to contact the parents or persons who have legal custody of the minor at this time and to notify them of my intent to authorize this medical decision. So the fact that this bill is touted, like I said, for supporting immigrant families, that is so stupid. Really what I think this is to get teachers to make medical decisions for their students without their parents' knowledge. So medical gender transitioning. That's what I think the crux of this bill is really all about. And Psalm 127 says, children are the heritage of from the Lord, offspring, a reward from him. Okay, in God's design, children are not property of the government. They are not commodities to be shuffled around by neighbors, bureaucrats, family, friends. They are entrusted. There is a sacred trust. God rewards you a child, given to parents, okay, not politicians, not school boards, not strangers. But today in California, under the veil of progress, okay, we're watching the state strip that trust away from parents. And like I said, leftists, really, they're just anti-Christian. At the end of the day, this is just an anti-Bible piece of legislation, AB 49.5. This would allow an adult, a teacher, a neighbor, or a complete stranger to claim authority over a child's medical decisions with nothing more than a checked box in a sworn statement. Okay. This is a one-page affidavit that you fill out, and you don't need any proof that you are kin. You don't need it. There's no accountability here. I mean, say I'm a human trafficker, okay, in California, and I have a child, let's say a 16-year-old girl, okay, 16, 15-year-old girl, and I'm a trafficker. I brought her over the border. She is mine, and I pimp her out to all of my friends, okay? She winds up pregnant, okay? She obviously has to go and either give birth or get an abortion. Now, me being the human trafficker, I want the baby because I'm going to go sell the baby, okay? Now, I'm just playing this out. I want the baby. I'm going to go sell the baby to somebody because I am an evil human trafficker. So I, the human trafficker, can get one of these little affidavits from the state of California. I'm an adult, and I can say that I have a familial relationship with this child. I killed this girl's parents. They hired me to bring them over the border for a new life here in America. I killed the girl's parents. I took the girl, and now I'm trafficking her around the state of California. Okay, I can say that I have a familiar relationship with this girl, and I can have guardianship over her medical decisions, and I can force her to have that baby here in the state of California, and I can go take her and make medical decisions on her behalf when she goes to the hospital and has the baby. And I can that's how this could play out. An extreme case, if AB 49.5 gets passed in the Senate. Okay, so this is not compassion, it's chaos. And it's the exact sort of lawless spirit the scripture warns about. So scripture, Isaiah 10, verses 1 through 2, God declares, woe to those who make unjust laws, to those who issue oppressive decrees, depriving the innocent of justice. That's what this bill does. It opens the doors for predators, for traffickers, for the state to insert itself between parents and their children under the false banner of care. Okay, and let's be clear, the phrase medical care today is very loaded. It's not just about a scraped knee, okay? It's not just about that. It's about hormone injections, puberty blockers, or worse. Okay, procedures with lifelong consequences, no parent involved. If I am a teacher and little Timmy says that he wants to be Tammy, he wants to go chop his wee-wee off, me as the teacher, Miss Cat, I can go take Timmy to go chop his wee-wee off if I just fill out a form. I mean, this is spiritual warfare. Parental authority is under attack, and it's time for believers to take a stand. The enemy knows if he can separate children from their God-given protectors. Okay, God gives you children. Okay, they are heritage from the Lord, and he can reshape them. If he can take them away from their God-given protectors, the enemy can reshape them and shape them into anything that he wants. And Jesus in Matthew 18, verse 6 says, if anyone causes one of these little ones to stumble, it would be better for them to have a millstone tied around their neck and drowned into the depths of the sea. For these little ones to stumble. I mean, this is all of these people who are crafting this type of legislation. What Jesus would say, he would say, these people, it would be better for them to have a millstone tied around their neck and drowned into the depths of the sea. That's what Jesus said. You don't cause children to be sexually abused or open them up to sexual abuse or genital mutilation. That's not hyperbole. That's how serious Christ defends children. So, church, you got to wake up, watch California, pray, speak, vote. And when the state starts deciding who gets to parent your child, it's time to say no more. All right, I got to take a quick break, but we are going to be back. Wow, that's evil. Of course, it's California, too. Yeah, of course, it's California. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if something like this. Now, the Illinois School Board of Education, the Illinois Teachers Association. Sorry, they're almost the same. The Illinois Education Association, the IEA. I remember when they sent out memos to teachers and to administrators and to school districts across the state saying, hey, if you can't out the children, if they're gay, LGBTQ, you can't out the children to their parents without that child's consent form, okay, without a written consent. So say little Timmy wants to be Tammy, okay, and you, the teacher, interact with Timmy every single day, and Timmy tells you that he wants to be a girl and he thinks that he's a girl. If he's in my classroom, I am not able to go tell the parents that he told me this. I would have to obtain written consent from Timmy to go tell the parents this, that it's okay to go tell the parents this. I have to obtain written consent, so I can't out the child to the parents. That's what the IEA instructed teachers to do, which is just so wrong because, like I said, the enemy wants to divide and to take away those children from their God-given protectors because then the enemy can shape and mold them into exactly who he wants them to be when their protectors are not there. So that was really, really evil. So it's not just California. It's here in Illinois as well, where they're trying to divide children from their parents. All right, I'm going to be right back. I'm going to take a quick break. Actually, no, I'm going to stick around, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Under the guise of inclusivity, we have University of Pennsylvania. They decided to give special rights to a guy, a man, a biological man, at the expense of women. That's what the University of Pennsylvania did. You guys probably know this story, Leah Thomas. Okay, and this is the most exclusive thing that they could have done, despite it being that, considering that there was only one person who was awarded special privileges and these women had their rights taken away from them. Title IX was violated. The university is still pretending, really, that they were on the compassionate side of history. But But now they have to come out and they have to apologize because really this is about money. I think that they lost $175 million in funding, federal funding from President Donald Trump. The Trump administration did what needed to be done and said, enough, we're not giving money to schools that affirm lies. So this trans swimmer, Leah Thomas, is set to have all of his titles removed, given back to the women who deserve them. He, of course, failed in the men's division as well. And he stole the titles away from the women who dedicated so much of their lives to this sport. Let's take a listen here to Leah Thomas. Here we go.
They're like, oh, we respect Leah as a woman, as a trans woman, whatever. We respect her identity. We just don't think it's fair. You can't really have that sort of half support where you're like, oh, I respect her as a woman here, but not here. They're using the guise of feminism to sort of push transphobic beliefs. And I think a lot of people in that camp sort of carry an implicit bias against trans people, but don't want to, I guess, fully manifest or speak that out. And so they try to just play it off as this sort of half support.
They think about how twisted feminism, quote unquote, feminism has become. Their arguments, in order to exclude anybody in the trans category, you have to reduce women to reproductive capacity, which is, in my opinion, extremely anti-feminist. I don't want to put those women down either. And I know you don't want to either, because I see pain. I see pain, and the pain is coming from somewhere. It's not you, though. It's the patriarchy. And how can we get people to see that?
They're like, oh,
it's the patriarchy. What the hell is that? Okay, so according to the New York Post, like I said, transgender swimming champion Leah Thomas is going to be stripped of University of Pennsylvania swimming titles after the Ivy League school bowed to the pressure of the Trump administration. That is exactly what I voted for. Most definitely what I voted for. The university will also issue formal apologies to every biological female competitor who lost to the transgender competitor following an investigation by the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights. And while the apology is long overdue, what's more pathetic is that it's being forced. So they still think that they are compassionate for being exclusive to women and affording Leah Thomas special privileges. So the probe found that the probe by the OCR, the Office of Civil Rights, the probe found that UPenn violated Title IX by allowing males to compete in female athletic programs and occupy female-only intimate facilities. Yeah, shocker. Not really. I mean, that was a violation of Title IX. So today's resolution with UPenn is yet another example of Trump, the Trump effect in action. This is what I voted for thanks to the leadership of President Donald Trump. UPenn has agreed to apologize for its past Title IX violations and ensure that women's sports are protected at the university for future generations of females. This is according to the Secretary of Education. So, yay. Let's celebrate. The resolution agreement was signed by the university, and it will require it to undertake a host of additional actions, including adopting biological-based definitions of male and female under the Title IX provision, and issuing a public statement that it will no longer allow biological men to compete in female athletic programs or occupy women-only locker rooms. So it's sad that this was necessary in the first place. This action was necessary for them to come out and apologize and strip him of his titles. But it's sad that we got here, because for all of human history, we didn't need formal resolutions or redefinitions of biological sex to distinguish right from wrong or distinguish male from female. We didn't need any of that because, hey, this is something that has just been historically understood. But the progressive left, they take something that's normal and just universally accepted, and then they twist it, they manufacture it, and then they crusade it as trans rights at the expense of women's rights. And the fact that we actually think that that's inclusive and compassionate is completely wild to me. It will never be compassionate or inclusive to allow men in female intimate spaces. That is very anti-woman, and this is it's never going to be compassion. And let's remember what Genesis 1:27 says. So God created mankind in his own image, female and male. He created them, or male and female. He created them. This is not a political statement. This is a divine fact ordained by God, Genesis 1, verse 27. So today we see institutions like University of Pennsylvania, they are backtracking thanks to President Donald Trump. But let's not forget what they did here. This was not compassion. This was not inclusive. This was exclusive. They gave special privileges to Leah Thomas to win against girls when he couldn't win against men in the men's division. So he went to the female division and won against girls. And they allowed this at the expense of female athletes, the female athletes who made sacrifices and had devoted their life, to their time, their talent, their treasure to being a top female athlete, and it was all taken away to them. Titles stolen, rights trampled, biology ignored. And I want to end with this: the truth will set you free. This is John 8:32. Truth cannot be silenced or rewritten to fit political agendas. The Trump administration's intervention to restore biological definitions under Title IX was totally necessary, but it was also righteous. Because the truth will set you free. All right. I appreciate you being here. Smash that like button. Share this out with your friends. Satan loses. The left is anti-God. Everything God said is good. And the left says everything the left says is bad. Yes, I appreciate you being here. Bye-bye. Love you. We'll be back again Monday through Friday. It's a daily show, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. I'll catch you later.